Welcome to China Elite Politics, a podcast about Chinese Communist Party elite politics and operations, US-China relations, and China-related geopolitics. I'm Larry Ong, Senior Analyst at SinoInsider. This is episode 4 of the podcast. In this episode, I'll explain why the Chinese Communist Party is weakening the political influence of Hong Kong tycoons as part of an overhaul of the city's electoral system. Alright, let's begin. In recent years, Beijing has been floating the idea that only patriots should be allowed to govern Hong Kong. Of course, by patriots, Beijing really means people who are loyal to Communist China and the Chinese Communist Party. In 2019, two major events convinced Beijing to guarantee that only patriots who, quote, love the country and love Hong Kong, or 爱国爱港, can participate in local politics. The first event was a massively popular anti-extradition bill demonstration, which brought millions of Hong Kongers out in the streets to protest a proposed law that would undermine Hong Kong's autonomy and erode civil liberties. The second was a historic landslide victory for the Hong Kong pro-democracy camp in the city's district council elections in November 2019. Nearly 3 million people, or 71% of registered voters, cast ballots in the elections. The Pan-Democrats won 17 out of 18 district councils and 388 out of 479 seats. The Pan-Democrats showing in the local election also meant that they took 117 seats in the 1,200-member election committee, an important body that elects Hong Kong's chief executive. Meanwhile, the pro-Beijing camp only won 62 seats, down by more than 240 seats from the previous election in 2015. The poor performance of pro-Beijing politicians in Hong Kong and overwhelming support for the pro-democracy movement was a nightmare for the Chinese Communist Party. From the party's perspective, counter-revolutionary forces were threatening to seize Hong Kong. Left unchecked, Hong Kongers could collaborate with hostile foreign forces to transform Hong Kong into a counter-revolutionary base and undermine the communist-ruled mainland. Beijing moved swiftly to squash the counter-revolutionary movement. In June 2020, the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, or the NPCSC, passed the Hong Kong National Security Law. Subsequently, dozens of prominent pro-democracy activists and politicians were arrested on national security grounds. This year, Beijing finally turned its patriots governing Hong Kong idea into a reality. On March 30th, the NPCSC approved sweeping electoral changes in Hong Kong. As part of the changes, the national security arm of Hong Kong's police force will screen prospective election candidates for their loyalty to the city and its basic law. Given that the Hong Kong Police National Security Arm answers to the city's National Security Committee, which in turn takes orders from Beijing via Liaison Office Director Luo Huining, we can reasonably infer that only so-called patriots who are loyal to the Chinese Communist Party will pass political screening in the future. The NPCSC also approved changes that curb democratic representation in Hong Kong's legislature and the election committee that picks Hong Kong's leader. For example, directly elected district councillors will no longer hold seats in both the election committee and the legislative council. This nullifies the pro-democracy camp's historic gains in the 2019 district council elections. Curiously, the pro-democracy camp was not the only group hurt by the sweeping changes to Hong Kong's electoral system. Billionaire property tycoons, a group of local elites that Communist China historically regards as patriots, saw their political influence curbed. Hong Kong's wealthiest, like Lei Ka-shing, Lei Xiu-gei, and Adam Kwok, lost more than 10% of their votes on the election committee to mainland Chinese companies and smaller Hong Kong businesses. The expansion of the election committee by another 300 members to a total of 1,500 members further reduced the power of Hong Kong's property tycoons. So why would Beijing want to weaken the political power of influential pro-Beijing elites in Hong Kong? I believe there are 3 reasons. First, Beijing is scapegoating property tycoons as part of an ongoing effort to fix its negative image in Hong Kong. Hong Kongers have come to view Beijing as the villain since the communist takeover of the mainland in 1949. The older generation of Hong Kongers recall stories of bodies floating down the Pearl River Delta during the Great Leap Forward famine. And Hong Kongers have been holding Tiananmen Square massacre memorials every year since 1989. Today, many Hong Kongers are concerned about Beijing's efforts to turn the city communist-red. This is clear from the introduction of so-called patriotic education in schools and the whole patriots governing Hong Kong requirement. Beijing is well aware of local animosity towards the central government. So during the 2019 anti-extradition bill protests, Beijing subtly designated Hong Kong property tycoons as the new class enemy for the masses to struggle against. Beijing claimed that increasing demonstrations in Hong Kong were the result of serious socio-economic problems and not its growing attempts to erode the one country, two systems model and strengthen central government control over the city. In particular, Beijing blamed housing shortages and sky-high property prices, an indirect jibe at Hong Kong's property tycoons. Beijing is not making wild accusations. All good disinformation campaigns contain a kernel of truth, and property tycoons are indeed partially at fault for deep-rooted socio-economic problems in Hong Kong today. However, the anti-extradition bill demonstrations are clearly targeted against the pro-Beijing Hong Kong government and the Chinese central government, not socio-economic issues. Regardless, someone has to take the fall for demonstrations against Beijing's erosion of Hong Kong's autonomy, and that someone happens to be property tycoons. Second, Beijing is having increasing doubts about how patriotic Hong Kong's wealthiest really are to the central government. Beijing would recall that Hong Kong's business community voted against Leung Chun-ying, the Chinese Communist Party's preferred candidate, in the 2012 chief executive election. Leung barely scraped through with 689 out of 1,200 votes. Beijing would also remember that Lei Ka-shing, Hong Kong's richest man, has consistently shown a soft spot for young Hong Kong protesters. For example, Lei took out 2 full-page advertisements during the anti-extradition bill demonstrations, calling for an end to violence in the city. However, the advertisements also carried a Chinese proverb cautioning the authorities against going too hard against the younger generation. Put another way, Lei believed that the authorities, and not the protesters, are more to blame for violence in Hong Kong. If Lei Ka-shing's advertisements were too cryptic, the statements he made subsequently during a visit to a local monastery removed possible doubts about his thoughts. Lei said that the pro-Beijing Hong Kong government should offer an olive branch to the young people of the city, whom he described as, quote, masters of our future. Comments like this and Lei's influence in the Hong Kong business community mean that property tycoons are no longer patriotic enough for Beijing. However, Beijing cannot simply block them from participating in local politics due to PR reasons, the outsized clout of Hong Kong's business elites, and the central government's practical need to keep engaging powerful local groups. Hence, Beijing opted instead to dilute the power of Hong Kong's property tycoons by expanding the election committee franchise and shaving their votes. Finally, Xi Jinping is looking to reshape factional networks and interests in Hong Kong. The Jiang Zemin faction that rivals the Xi camp has a strong and deep-rooted political presence in Hong Kong. After all, the Hong Kong handover in 1997 happened when Jiang Zemin was party boss. Also, Communist China's Hong Kong and Macau apparatus was mostly headed and staffed by Jiang faction loyalists for over 2 decades. During this time, Hong Kong's property tycoons would naturally become the political clients of Jiang faction patrons, meaning that their loyalties are ultimately suspect to Xi Jinping. In accounting for the you die, I live nature of factional struggle in the Chinese Communist Party, it makes sense from Xi's perspective to weaken the political sway of property tycoons to ensure that the power of capital in Hong Kong cannot be used against Beijing. Meanwhile, Xi is rebuilding factional networks in Hong Kong and re-educating local elites in what it means to be a true patriot. Under Xi, loyalty to Beijing means loyalty to the Communist Party and himself, and not to Jiang faction elites. Hong Kong's property tycoons can either learn this lesson well or find themselves increasingly marginalized by Beijing. Factional struggle in the Chinese Communist Party can be difficult to spot. In Hong Kong, however, signs of factional struggle are relatively easier to detect, partly because Hong Kong enjoys greater press freedoms than mainland China. Recent signs from Hong Kong suggest that the Xi-Jiang factional struggle is escalating towards a showdown. First, Xi Jinping has been replacing the heads of key organs in the Hong Kong and Macau apparatus with his loyalists and reshuffling lower-ranking staff en masse since early 2020. Mass personnel changes helped Xi with his deep state problem in Hong Kong, weakening the Jiang faction's sway over the city and strengthening Xi's control. However, the case of Jiang faction member Zhang Xiaoming shows the limits to how fast and far Xi can push in rectifying the Hong Kong and Macau apparatus. While serving as Hong Kong Liaison Office Director from 2012 to 2017, Zhang would occasionally make provocative comments or decisions that deviated from Beijing's stance. Zhang's maverick performances led to frequent rumors in the Hong Kong press that he was going to be purged. Yet Zhang Xiaoming was subsequently promoted to head of the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office, where he continued needless provocations. Zhang was finally demoted in February 2020 to Deputy Director of the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office, with Xi loyalist Xia Baolong taking over as Director. It is very likely that Xi Jinping wasn't able to marginalize Zhang Xiaoming earlier due to factional resistance, personnel horse trading, or Zhang's relatively acceptable overall performance in Hong Kong until 2019. The outbreak of the anti-extradition bill movement and the massive defeat of pro-Beijing politicians in local elections, however, would have given Xi enough justification to finally begin sidelining this member of a rival faction. Second, the Hong Kong government has been moving against powerful interest groups in the New Territories region bordering mainland China. On March 12, Hong Kong's Independent Commission Against Corruption announced that 24 individuals had been arrested over property development corruption in Yuen Long. Hong Kong media revealed that a powerful local lawyer and property developer had been arrested, along with his son and a local politician. The high-profile shakeup of interest groups in the New Territories appear to be part of Xi Jinping's effort to deny the Jiang faction any opportunities to transform Hong Kong into a counter-revolutionary and anti-Xi base. Finally, a local anti-Falun Gong group, the Hong Kong Youth Care Association, or Qing Guan Hui, officially and abruptly disbanded at the end of 2020. This development is almost certainly linked with the Xi-Jiang factional struggle because the anti-Falun Gong campaign is Jiang Zeming's political legacy, and the Chinese Communist Party doesn't casually retreat from persecution. Let's sum it up briefly. In this episode, we looked at why Communist China wants so-called patriots to govern Hong Kong, and how property tycoons, who are typically pro-Beijing, have been affected by the central government's patriot electoral changes. We also looked at 3 reasons why Beijing is wary of Hong Kong's wealthiest and is looking to curb their political power. Finally, we briefly looked over the latest Hong Kong-related developments in the Xi-Jiang factional struggle. That's it for today. If you found the information and analysis useful, please feel free to share it with others. See you in the next episode.